everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we are going to be continuing Eminence and Shadow, The Shadow's Web, What If Sid Kagenou Was Spider-Man, Season 1, Part 3. As always, if you are new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. So as we go into part 3, we're now at the midway point of the series, if you will, as parts 4 and 5 will be the final two parts for season 1. Now, so far in this series, we've had many new concepts and ideas brought into the mythos of Eminence and Shadow. And again, with this sort of series, we're not just pulling from the Spider-Man mythos, but we're also pulling from many other different parts and aspects of the stories from the overall Marvel universe. In particular, more from the Captain Britain and the UK side of things and the more medieval sort of characters to play into the lore of the Eminence and Shadow universe, while still holding true to the core traits and beliefs of the Spider-Man character. But overall, I do hope you enjoyed the story so far and you'll follow along as we continue on into today's video. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Many people have a terrible misconception about war. A lot of people think that wars are fought on large battlefields between two great armies. When you envision war, you think of a great climactic battle of sorts, a crescendo, an explosive ending, swords, blast, gunfire, and smoke. But for Sid Kagenou, he understood that when fighting a war, it took more than just power. It took more than just how well you could use magic, how well you could use a sword. It was a lot deeper than that. You see, this was the folly of heroes, at least for Sid. There's a difference between playing a part and actually living it. Sure, the hero tries to be the opposite of their alter ego. They try to be mild-mannered, or sometimes they try to be the exaggerated opposite. Someone with incredible strength might play a lowly, well-meaning individual, might even throw on some glasses to look a little dorky. And then there are those who are stoic and serious, so they play it off by being a nonchalant, wealthy individual. You understand the archetypes. They've existed countless times, and more than not, they're the tried and true tropes of heroes. But Sid Kagenou did not describe to such an ideal. For one, Sid understood that to fight this battle, he needed more than just his powers, the abilities that the goddess had given him. No, Sid needed money. Yes, do not listen to what people say to you when they say that money is not a superpower. No, money is very, very much a superpower. It's one of the greatest superpowers you can have. The idea of more money, more problems, no, that is an entirely flawed statement. And to the idiot who made that statement, Sid hoped that he would burn in a pot of boiling water. Because money does not give you more problems. It only exacerbates the true inner problems that you already had. For example, if your spending habits were terrible when you were poor, well, who's to say that it would change once you become rich? That's not the money's fault. The money is not the cause of the problem. The person is always the cause of the problem. Sid hated people who only tried to treat the symptoms, not the disease, the issue. The reason why money was a power was because in this world, money could get you many things. For example, having the best lawyer on retention is something very vital and crucial to have. Sid had one for just such an occasion. He was a blind guy, well-meaning, ran his own firm. The point being, if Sid Kagenou was ever in a predicament where he needed someone in the court of law, why not have the best lawyer possible? On top of that, when you have money, you also have influence. Using that influence, you can get information. You can get property. You can get land. You can bypass many of the regular sort of pit stops of the average life. Of course, you could always just use your powers to sneak around and do this and do that, but that's honestly more difficult than people would give it credit for. For example, say you wanted to cross over a border to another country. Someone with powers would say, why don't you just try to teleport? Why don't you try to fly? Why don't you do this, that, and everything else? Well, sure, but if you have the money, why don't you just pay for the best travel possible and you just go through the border like everyone else? You would think that that would be the least advantageous thing to do, but really it's the best thing you can do. So if you really want to understand people, if you really want to understand your environment, you have to operate within the environment. Always trying to be outside of it is how you're led to failure. It's what leads to disaster. For Sid, he understood this. But not just him, also the members of Shadow Garden. In particular, Gamma, one of his subordinates, who had gone as far as to open up stores, a lot of department stores, some that sold clothing, coffees, chocolates, candies, things of that nature. It was growing and becoming very popular. As Gamma would show him the funds and just how well business was booming, Sid now found himself being one of the more wealthier men in all of Midgar. I hope it's to your liking, Lord Shadow, Gamma would ask. It is. I have to say, this is really impressive, Gamma. I wonder why I didn't think of it. Of course, Sid had been toying with the idea, but even he hadn't fully recollected just how he was going to go through the proper channels and means to start such a business. But this is what finding loyal subordinates is for. They always come through when you need them. What exactly would you like to do with the funds? For now, we'll store them. We'll accolate them to the proper channels when we need to. So just tell me, how many of these stores you got opening up around here? Gamma would show Sid where all of their locations were. She also explained that there was a tunnel system underneath each store that connected it to the other. It was hidden in forms of elaborate passageways that only members of Shadow Garden, the real Shadow Garden, would be able to use properly. And, in the worst case scenario, contingencies were also put into play so that if necessary, if they were to be compromised, then they could just destroy everything, and it would be as if they were never there in the first place. This was the type of ingenuity and thinking that Sid could get behind. As he left the department store, as he was now satisfied with the progress that his Shadow Garden was making, as he walked down the streets at night, he could hear fighting in the distance, in an alleyway. It was Alexia. There were hooded figures who she was battling against with the sword. Sid would quickly slip into the alley into the shadows, his slime suit changing into that of the spider suit, as he crawled up the walls and watched. The hooded figures claimed themselves to be Shadow Garden. They said it like mindless zombies, as if it were the only phrase they were capable of saying. Quickly enough, though, Sid would step in. Alexia, surprised to see that the Spider-Man was here, the supposed leader of Shadow Garden, the one that saved her. It's you, Alexia would say. Long time no see, Princess. Stay out of this. In short order, Sid would make quick work of the false Shadow Garden, leaving only one imposter alive. For the newest member of Shadow Garden, new to deal with, she had expert skills in interrogation, and wanting to prove herself to her new master, she was going to make sure she got results. As he was preparing to leave, though, Alexia, still with sword in hand, would stand behind him. So this isn't your Shadow Garden? No, not even mine. Nothing close to it. No one that works for me would ever do something so dumb. But what are you then? These hooded figures, if they're not really a part of Shadow Garden, they've been going around claiming to be. That doesn't concern you in the least? Why should it? False prophets preach every single day. They can preach their gospel, but it doesn't change what the true message is now, does it? That's not the point. My sister is looking into you and to this supposed cult of Diablos. So far, we can't discover much about the cult. However, Shadow Garden seems pretty real. Well, I assure you, the cult is real. Then why won't you help us then? Speak with us. If you actually know information that could help protect the kingdom, then I don't serve the kingdom. You see, I think you're a little confused about the situation, Princess. So, allow me to educate you. What Shadow Garden stands for is not for Midgar. It's not for any of its neighboring countries. We don't stand for the enemies either. We only stand for the protection of the world and everyone in it. Protection of the world? Then why won't you? With all due respect, Midgar is seeping in corruption. Not you necessarily, but you can't say with a straight face that you trust every single person that dons the knight's colors, do you? Alexia would think about her interaction with Xenon, a well-respected sword master of the Black Knights, only proved to be a traitor, the one that harmed her. You have a point. But how can we? As long as you know the truth, that's all that matters. Your world is free to think whatever you want. Call us allies, call us enemies. It makes no difference. It changes absolutely nothing. I know what I must do, the path I must walk, and that's something that will never change. Take care of yourself. Just as quickly as he had appeared, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving Alexia there all alone. In the meantime, there were many new developments going around in Midgar Academy. For one, Sid had been roped into yet another scheme by his friends and classmates, that being in Ned and Hobie, respectively. The two boys had decided that they, along with Sid, were going to be giving out chocolates as a way of confessing their love, although it didn't go nearly as well as they would have hoped, at least for either of them. When Ned made his confession, he ended up getting punished by the girl's fiance, and as for Hobie, his confession ended up getting him arrested because he got mistaken for a stalker. Sid, not really caring about it, decided he was just going to give his chocolates to whoever, and by chance, he ran into a girl named Sherry. She was the adoptive daughter to the vice principal, Rusun. And not only that, she was also a well-respected researcher, highest in the kingdom, so much so that Princess Iris had actually chosen her to study a recovered relic that they had found from an abandoned hideout during their raid against the supposed cult of Diablos. Of course, Sid didn't really think much of it at all. It was nothing more but chocolates to him. But for Sherry, it was something else, to say the least. Misinterpretations. They happen every single day. And for Sid, whether he wanted to admit it or not, slowly but surely, a new roster was growing. Not for Shadow Garden, but potential romantic interest. Of course, it wasn't like Sid never thought about these ideals before. He was a young, healthy male, just like anyone else. And boys this age, they tend to see girls. However, he never allowed that to get in the way of his overall goals or his focus. When everything was said and done, if he was still alive, which was a big if, then maybe he'd find someone to settle down with. Although that would probably be easier said than done, since he always seemed to get the attention of any girl he interacted with. There were the girls in Shadow Garden, to say the least, particularly Alpha. I mean, she was cute. Very cute. Sid couldn't deny that. But still, he had to play it cool. Although, in all likelihood, Alpha would probably be the prime choice. Although the other girls would definitely want to put up a fight. And that's only including the girls in Shadow Garden. That's not including any potential outside interference. Although Sid couldn't help but smile. Alpha versus Alexia? Winner gets to marry him? Okay, no, now that's just too egotistical. But still, that would definitely be a hell of a fight. Sid would muse to himself. However, in the meantime, Sherry, the girl that had received that random assortment of chocolate, found herself in a rather perplexed state, as her father would inform her that when a boy gave you chocolate, it was actually a sign of romantic interest, a form of a love confession, and he encouraged her not to keep him waiting, but to give him a proper response. This was all so sudden for Sherry. She never thought of herself as someone worth anyone's romantical affections at all, and the fact that a rather cute boy from a decently noble family gave her chocolate, well, safe to say, her mind was racing with many things, and it wasn't just her research. In the meantime, New would inform Sid about how her interrogation went with the fake Shadow Garden soldier. He was nothing more but a cult foot soldier who had been brainwashed with drugs and magic. However, before Sid could carry on with the conversation, he would be preoccupied as Hobie and Ned had gotten him involved in yet more school shenanigans, which I guess was a good thing for an NPC such as himself, although when it's a sword fighting tournament, he couldn't just outright win this thing, then he'd all but give away his identity. But still, he didn't actually want to just straight up lose. He had some pride. He would find himself matched up against a girl named Rose, the student president, a princess from the neighboring kingdom of Oriana. As the two would begin their battle, Sid was able to deduce just how skilled she was. Definitely a high-priced sword fighter. If it came to an actual terms of prowess, she was definitely better than Alexia, although Alexia fought with the basics, the fundamentals, and there was something to be appreciated about having a simple and yet effective fighting style. But for Rose, it was something else. She was lethal with the blade, almost as if she were like a surgeon, perfectly skilled with a scalpel. The way she was able to move, Sid, even though he was trying to play the role of the weaker, he had to admit if he was even trying at his fullest, she'd still be giving him a problem. But thankfully, he wasn't trying. He wasn't trying to win at all. However, unbeknownst to him, the way that the fight was coming off to everyone else in the stands was entirely different. You see, Sid was just trying not to win. Rose was trying to win. It created a weird dichotomy where it looked like Sid was just getting his ass kicked over and over and over, and yet he kept getting back up, showing true heart and determination. And actually, it got to a point where Sid was kind of enjoying himself. So much so that he actually went against his own rules. He ended up engaging with the girl a little bit. There wasn't much that caught Sid's attention, not a lot that got him excited, but having a good fight, a real fight with a good challenge, he chose to get a little greedy. He would call this his reward, his little treat. He was going to indulge in a fight. Rose was surprised that the younger and scrawnier man by appearance was actually able to give her a challenge. Before long, the people in the stands were screaming and roaring. It looked like Sid might actually be able to take the princess. Even Alexia was surprised. Sherry was watching on in the crowd, and she found herself cheering harder than anyone. As everyone watched as the battle continued, Sid was grinning from ear to ear. And Rose, the same. It seems you're not bad for a first year. I must say, Princess, your reputation precedes you. You are truly a master of the blade. Although, my stamina is quite pathetic. I say I only have one more flurry left in me. So with all due respect, I think we should bring this fight to a close. If you insist. Of course, Sid was just bluffing. He could have kept going for hours and hours, but no, this was just the proper place to end it. He had already been greedy enough, no need to indulge any further. With one final clash, Sid would collapse to the ground. And with that, Rose would be declared the victor. Of course, they would both be given a standing ovation. And even those in the higher up position would be looking at Sid just a little differently. Then again, he did have an older sister who was a very skilled sword fighter in her own right. Of course, it was always acknowledged she was the superior. At least that's how Sid always wanted it to be. You could just say that this was just a flash in the pan, just a little bit of what he could actually do. When the fight was finally over, as Sid was going to go get his injuries treated, Sherry, who had now been extremely curious about the boy, would ask Princess Alexa about her relationship with Sid, happy to learn when Alexia revealed that their relationship was fake, and now saw this as an opportunity to make her move, although now Alexia was more upset than anything else that the girl was actually interested in him. Before long, an election was announced to fill the empty student council seat. It was a typical day in class for everyone, with people still talking about that battle that Sid had against Rose. And even more so, Rose had become very interested in the boy. Even if he didn't have the stamina as he claimed, he definitely had the potential. Maybe she wanted to see more of that potential brought to the forefront. However, before she could even have a chance to speak to him, outside of the school, a man clad in armor named the Gaunt Knight would erect an anti-magic barrier, allowing for the fake Shadow Garden to capture the academy. in Sid's own classroom, they would find themselves under attack, as the members of the fake Shadow Garden, now rendering all of the students weak without the use of their magic, was attempting to round everyone up to hold them hostage. Rose, foolishly enough, would try to fight against them, but without the use of her magic, she was in the weaker position. Without even thinking about it, Sid would recklessly rush trying to save her, only to be severely wounded and struck down. Foolishly enough, Rose would think that Sid did this for her as some confession of love of sorts, and she was very wrong. You see, Sid actually had the means to recover from this attack, but he couldn't very well just go around beating up everyone as Sid Kagenou. No, that would not work at all. So he needed an excuse. With everyone being pulled out of the classroom and his supposedly lifeless body being left there, Sid would take the proper measures to revive and heal himself. Once doing so, Sid would then begin to make his descent into the school, as he was now going to have to deal with this fake Shadow Garden and bring their nuisance to a close once and for all. In the meantime, a soldier by the name of Rex, who was actually a cult member in secret, was attempting to find Sherry in order to steal back the relic for the cult. However, he was stopped by Iris and Captain Midgar, along with a member of the Crimson Knights, who would help Sherry escape. Sherry identified the relic as generating a barrier, known as the Eye of Avarice. It had the ability to absorb magic and then to explode once full, repeating the cycle over and over again. Sid had also become aware of the relic itself, and upon closer inspection, he was able to understand why the cult wanted the eye in the first place. Not just to absorb the students' magic and to keep them as prisoners, but if they were able to replicate this relic on an even larger scale, it could allow them to absorb the magic that was seeping through the barrier that had been keeping Diablos at bay. It was because of this that Sid knew that taking that relic would be of top priority. For one, it would be a wrench in the cult's plans, but if he could reverse engineer that relic and use it for his own ends, then it could definitely give him the leg up that he needed, especially dealing with his fight against the cult of Diablos and his ultimate goal, killing Diablos once and for all. The part of the relic that Sherry had been researching was the Eye of Avarice's control unit. Using this could allow one to control the relic with will, and she hoped that by using it, it could stop the potential explosion of the school. As Sherry continued on working with the tools in her room, Sid, who had met up with her, would volunteer to help her get away. However, the would-be soldier Rex would warn that the Gaunt Knight was going to be the one that would take it. The one that would not only bring down this pitiful kingdom, but would make sure that Shadow Garden would be the ones to take the fall as well. The Gaunt Knight had his own true goals in mind: the restoration of the Knights of the Round. And thankfully, he had come into contact with individuals who could give him just what he was looking for: the cult of Diablos. In exchange for their services, not only would the Knights of the Round be restored to their proper glory, but he would be the one to lead them. In the meantime, Sid would order New, along with the fellow members of Shadow Garden, not to attack the terrorists until Sherry and the control relic was ready. Sid would have to wait. He would have to bide his time. But once she was ready to activate it, Sid would make sure to take his leave before returning, disguised once again as the Spider-Man, the Eminence in Shadow, along with Shadow Garden. Waiting for the proper moment, Sid would slip out of the room where Sherry had been working, promising that he would return shortly. After doing so, he would use his slime suit to transform into the Spider-Man. And not just that, but once the relic was ready to go and the barrier was taken down, Shadow Garden would then begin their assault as they emerged and began taking down and killing the false Shadow Garden members, much to the dismay of Iris, along with Captain Midgar, and the Crimson Knights who would follow in not too long after to secure the area. As Sherry had now made the device work and was ready to find where Sid and the others were, she would be confronted by the Gaunt Knight, who, in an effort to spare her from an even worser fate, would knock her out, not allowing her to see his true identity. However, Sid had quickly joined the room not too long after, the Gaunt Knight turning to face the infamous Spider-Man. So, you're the one that's responsible for all this mess. Gotta say, you definitely know how to make an entrance. But picking a fight with students, don't you think that's beneath a knight, even of your dignity and stature? It's all but a means to an end, Spider-Man. And what a pity, this mess that you and your Shadow Garden have caused. Why, you'll be branded as enemies of the kingdom, and you'll face the justice of the Knights of the Round. That's what you're after all this time. Why don't you take off that helmet and you show who you truly are? Rosalind. So you figured it out. The Gaunt Knight would remove his helmet, revealing himself to be Sherry's adoptive father. Does she know? Of course not. She could never know such a truth. In the end, it's better this way. When I spoke to her, I learned about her past. Her mother. She had been doing research on the Eye of Avarice, on its control unit, before she was, strangely enough, murdered. You are definitely a decisive one, I grant you that. Yes, I was the one that killed her mother. It wasn't supposed to be this way. All she had to do was hand over the damn device. But no, instead she tried to play the hero. I had no choice in the matter. Her daughter would have met the same fate if not for the fact that she was probably the only one who was smart enough to work on the damn thing. But now that she's lived her usefulness, it's safe to say that I no longer have a need for a daughter, but instead, I must become an avenger, a father in mourning. Yes, my daughter, Sherry, tragically strucken down by the Spider-Man and his Shadow Garden. A father seeking to avenge the death of his daughter, restoring the Knights of the Round, and ridding the country of terrorists. That's truly an amazing story, don't you think? From what I was told, old man, history is only written by the victor. I agree. Then allow me to claim victory. Sid, and the gaunt knight would engage in a battle of swordsmanship. For his older age, the man was able to keep up relatively well. Along with using the Eye of Avarice, he attempted to absorb the magic that Sid had in order to strengthen and boost himself. He bragged on and on about all of his crimes and how he intended to frame Shadow Garden for all of them. However, Sid was entirely unconcerned about it all. In the end, the battle wasn't anything too much of note, seeing as how, even if he could absorb magic, the power that Sid possessed, it wasn't magic in origin. It was something else. Ruslan would activate the Eye of Avarice, laughing maniacally as he absorbed all of the magic in the room. As he had done so, he had believed that he had now gained the victory. The power is now in my possession, Spider-Man. You can bluff all you want, but I know that you have no more magic. The Eye tells me so. Now, submit yourself and face the righteous fury of a Knight of the Round. As he raised his blade to strike down Sid, Sid would easily counter, overpowering the old man and shattering the Eye. He didn't understand. How was he still this strong? The only possible, the only conceivable way that he could still have this power is if he... No. This... How did... He's like him, he would think. You see, the Eye of Avarice has the capability of absorbing magic. However, there is one thing it cannot absorb. The power of a god. A blessing, if you will. Take Captain Midgar. His family passed down the power of the god of the lion. As such, he not only is imbued with magic, but also with the power known as a blessing. A blessing and magic are two entirely different things. Magic is something that's generated from a human. Anyone can use it. A blessing, however, is a particular source of power that comes from the gods. Something that cannot be taken away by a mere human. Only a god or someone of a godly being has that capability. And, as we all know, Sid is the chosen hero of the goddess Arachne. As such, even if he lost his magic, he still has the blessing of the goddess, a power that trumps all would-be magic. But how? How did you receive the blessing? Funny enough, I was chosen. You see, I am the Eminence in shadow. I stay in the shadows to hunt the shadows. I am not a hero, nor do I claim to be. In the end, I am the one thing that is not avoidable. I am the one truth in this world that acts indiscriminately. I am justice. Justice? I am. I am a righteous justice that does not bow to the whims of man or to a kingdom. I answer only to the goddess that chose me. And she chose me to be the justice of this world. And now, I exercise that justice as I sentence you, Ruslan, to death. With one strike, the old man would be taken down. The room set ablaze in the midst of the battling, the fires, and the chaos. As the door would burst open, Sherry would slowly come to her senses, only to see the man that she had called father slain on the ground. Standing above him, the Spider-Man. The one that burst into the room was Captain Midgar, now having a chance to come face to face with the infamous Spider. You're gonna pay for what you've done today, Spider-Man. You and all of your Shadow Garden. There's no denying it, and there's nowhere to run. You are the true enemies of the country. Captain Midgar, it's not what you... I don't want to hear it. You put your hands behind your head, and you get down on the ground now. The man who inherited the power of the lion. I truly say you have my respects, Captain. Always know that. But unfortunately, I cannot bow to you. What? I can't really explain it. I doubt you would believe me. But when this is all said and done, if you still feel the need to, you can gladly take my life. But until I have accomplished what I was chosen for, I will not falter. I will not fall. And I will not bow, even to the likes of you, mighty lion. Captain Midgar would swing his golden mace, attempting to strike Sid, only for him to dodge before jumping out of the window, disappearing into the shadows of the night. As he would turn back to Sherry, she would only be distraught, seeing her dead father lying on the ground. Never to know the truth, his intentions, what he truly was. In the wake of the attack, Iris, as well as the kingdom, would place Shadow Garden as a terrorist organization, a threat to the country of Midgar. As she sat in the council room, with Captain Midgar standing behind her, she would make her declaration. Our number one target, our number one priority, is the Spider-Man. This concludes Eminence and Shadow, The Shadow's Web. What if Sid Kagenou was Spider-Man? Season 1, Part 3. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we conclude Neon Genesis Evangelion, The Spider's Thesis, where Shinji Ikari was Spider-Man Part 10. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.